Welcome to the Devon Corner, where we discuss the world's most practical breed of cattle and the role they play in different production systems around the globe. Everything from genetics and pedigrees to cattle and pasture management. Joined with my co-host, Steve Montgomery, and want to welcome Charlie and Martha Trantham from Lenoir's Creek, Devon, to the show. And Steve, start us with a prayer, please.
Sure, can. Pray with me. Father, thank you for today, the opportunity to speak with Martha and Charlie and to hear their story and to hear about the resilience they possess and the things they've been through here with the hurricane in the last year. Thank you for their legacy in the Devon community, for their stewardship of Devon cattle and their willingness to share that with us today and with many people throughout the years. Thank you for seeing their farm name on many, many pedigrees, and especially the ones that catch your eye. And just delight in the opportunity to get to know them a little better today. And thank you for Jeremy and his friendship and the opportunity to work with so many great people here at RD USA. And just thank you again for where you brought us and the chance that we get to steward these cattle and to get to know one another in the process. Be with us throughout this conversation in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Steve. Well, this is, I guess, officially episode number 3 and another easy one. My friendship with Charlie and Martha goes back to when I started farming full time. They've been doing it since, I think they've been renting Lenoir's Creek since 1995 and doing it even before that. People strong in their faith and good friends, just like my first 2 guests. And yeah, I want to come back to the hurricane for sure. A monumentally devastating event to the whole southeast U.S. And I saw a stat that said $78 billion worth of damage that the hurricane caused, but 60 billion of that was North Carolina. I mean, that's unbelievable. But we're going to come back to that. Your guys' origin story, Captain Thomas Isaac Lenoir, bringing those cattle down. I'm going to let you tell it, but please tell us the story of Lenoir's Creek Devons up to your involvement and up to today.
Thomas Isaac Lenoir and some of his slaves walked to Maryland in 1849 to bring down some Devon cattle. I don't know the number, but it was said that it took the whole summer to walk them from Maryland back to here in Crusoe. You'll have to excuse me, I'm brain dead.
You're fine. You're fine. So it took all summer to bring the cattle down. I mean, that's hard to imagine. Just organizing that. Where are you going to stop and stay? And it just has to be an unbelievable undertaking. I mean, all summer, we're talking 3 or 4 months, housing not only the cattle but the slaves and feeding everybody. It's an incredible thing. And didn't the story tell me about the Confederate Army and the things that the Lenoirs ran into after they got the cattle to North Carolina?
Okay. During the Civil War, the military came and raided the farm, and they were hunting animals. But Thomas Isaac had run the cattle up on the mountain, so they didn't get any cattle. They got a pig or 2. And years ago, they had a cabinet that was in the dining room where they had shot into the house, and it put a hole in that cabinet. I think some of the Michaels here still have that cabinet. I wished I did, but anyway, And in I'm going to move on up to 1988. That's when we started. Charlie started coming down to work, and me till time for school to let out, because our kids were only 5 and 6. So I'd have to go back home to be there when the bus came. And finally, in 1995, we moved here on the farm. We don't own the whole farm. It's really owned by Joe Michael and Mary Michael, who are brother and sisters. And they both are now in a nursing home or assisted living down in South Carolina. But he started working here in 88, and we were scraping by. And we told them the arrangements were going to have to change, or we were going to have to move on. So in 95, they pretty much leased us the farm and told us to see if we could make a go of it. So that's when we changed the name to Lenoir Creek, Devon. And we've been making this as our sole living, and we've been doing it since then, since 1995.
What was the name before Lenoir's Creek, Devon, Martha?
Do you remember?
Really?
I don't even remember now.
I would say usually I know the answers to most of the questions I'm asking, but I didn't realize that they had changed the name. But please continue.
Yeah, we had to change the name just for debt purposes. They didn't want to get caught with a bunch of debt. But when we first came, there were 18 cattle here on the farm. And the guy that was managing it was afraid of the bull. He was a big guy, but he was a gentle guy. So when they were interviewing Charlie, Mary asked him what would be the first thing he'd do. He said, I'd knock the boards off that lot that bull's in and let him out. I mean, he was just in a little rectangle hole.
Barn. They had him locked up, boarded up. He couldn't get out.
All by himself.
Yeah.
By himself. He was just as gentle as he could be when I knocked them boards off. Never had no problem with him.
You lock Steve in a box for a couple of days, he gets right feisty too. So
He changed his mind.
Do you remember the name of that bull?
King David, I think, was the name.
Yeah, Alana King David.
Yeah.
Now, I can't remember what I ate for breakfast, but I can remember that bull's name.
well, tell me about that bull. That's one of the great things we try to do here is get into, and we'll ask you about some bloodlines and cattle as we go. But tell me about Alona's King David. He appears in a bunch of pedigrees, and also about the original 18 cows that you took over. Were they beautiful cows that didn't need improvement, or were there things that you said, oh man, we got to fix some feed or something?
No, they were great cattle. They were big, stocky, short animals. But that's where I started my herd from. I kept King David, I think, a couple of more years. He was getting some age on him. And we started building the herd. And we got up to 80 cows. So now we're kind of downsizing a little bit because my health and age and Martha's health. So we're downsized. We still got 45 cows. Still trying to keep everything here. We have rented pasture up the road, and normally I'd take them up there in the summertime and then bring them back home in the fall for calving. And they stay here all winter. We've changed. We've raised some bulls here and kept them. Bought bulls and brought them in. That's the only animals that's ever entered the farm. There's never been no cattle brought in. So it's mainly just the bulls, and we've kept them for their pedigree all these years.
Well,
We're now,
tell me about that alone as King David. How big of a bull was he? Muslin milk color? Tell me about the bull.
He was dark red. Uh, he was probably a 1,800 pound bull, the best I can remember. Uh, he throwed some real good cows because that's where I started building a herd from. Uh, then we went off to Mississippi looking for another bull at that time. That's back before I really know Jeremy. Uh, when we joined the association.
like in 1990, I think,
Is when we joined the
because
association.
Mary was still trying to do the paperwork, and she only came like once a month, and then we'd be behind. So I finally asked her if I could just take over the registration and transferring part.
Which would turn into you being the secretary of the breed for how many years and doing everybody's registrations? Had to be a decade.
About 7 years, I think. The first meeting we went to was up at Jeremy's.
Yeah, and that's where the meeting was. Jeremy, his daddy and mama, and me and Charlie.
Well, there's a few more there at that
We were
time.
thriving. We were thriving. Who was
Yeah,
the lady's house? Y'all bought the F-142 Guardsman, and we met in her basement in West Virginia. I think there was about 5 of us too.
Yeah.
Can you remember her name?
Uh,
I can't remember off the top of my head.
no, I slept since then. Uh,
But I think that's first bull you bought from us, and you
it
bought
was,
several sets. But um, um, let's talk about that F-142 Guardsman bull. His mama was one of the 3 cows Gerald Fry had to have when he came here and first started in Devon, and that Guardsman line. There wasn't a whole lot of that around, and of course, there's no semen left from imported Lufton Guardsmen. The best thing I can say about that bull is his daughters all lasted in well into their teens, big bodied cows. And I really liked that bull's production more than I liked the bull, but I liked the bull. But tell me your thoughts on that bull and guidance for people. There's still some guardsman semen floating around. In fact, I have an F-142 guardsman son from AI last year out in my bull paddock. But talk about that bull if you would for a little bit.
he was a good gentle bull. We went up to, I think, Virginia. The lady had bought him from you, and she was selling out. And me and Mary went up there and looked at him and bought him and brought him here. He was probably 3 year old,
maybe.
at that time. And we kept him for, I don't know how many years.
Long time.
Yeah, we had him here a long time. I would get a younger bull to breed the heifers, but I kept him on the main herd cows. He was docile, dark red, throwed good calves. It got to the point that I couldn't keep enough heifers and semen because everybody was wanting some. Gerald Fry, he tried to buy him off of me. Well, actually, he wanted to buy my whole herd, but I didn't want to get rid of them because that's our living. That's the way we make our living down here. He was not a very tall bull, but he was stocky and built good.
Good body to that bull too.
Yeah, he had a big body to him.
Well, you sold. You sold daughters out of that bull that were foundation stock for a lot of people out in the upper Midwest. And tell us about the cow you sold. You sold a cow in a North American Devon sale for record prices. I don't even remember what year that was. Had to be 15 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of the cows brought over $20,000. I took 3 cows up there. One went for 25,000. The other one went for 22,000. And then the third cow was 20,000.
30.
30,000.
30,000.
Yeah. So he throwed some real good cash and good stock at that time.
And we were on cloud nine.
Yeah.
I was gonna say at those prices, I bet you would have sold the whole herd.
Yeah. Yeah. For that price, they'd have went out of here.
25,000 a cow, you can pretty much come to Lakota and have anything you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that was a special time, and there was a lot of excitement in Devon cattle, and that stock, as we say, has been foundation stock uh, for a lot of different people. I visited you guys. We had the World Devon Congress. That's what we talked about a lot in the first episode with me and Steve. Steve was instrumental in setting that up and helping with running the thing throughout the event. I had an interesting trip on my way down to Florida. Martha was having some health problem. I stopped and helped Charlie get ready, and then I had to miss the stop coming back. But it was your first time hosting a World Devon Congress, which was something I was sorry to miss, but happy that it happened because you guys, uh, you're part of the Devon story in this country, and the fact that we hadn't been there before was something that needed to be corrected. But talk about that day in the World Devon Congress and what you got out of it.
I loved hearing what was going on in Australia. Australia amazes me. Someday I would like to go there. But hearing Vic talk, and I talked to the ladies a lot, and we compared sort of what they do and what we do here on the farm. And I just enjoyed talking and hearing their accents. I don't have an accent, but I liked.
You have a little accent, Martha.
Oh, okay. So I really liked just talking and seeing how things work. I noticed on Facebook at right now, they are very dry and hot. So it's
They're
just,
always very dry and hot. I complain about a drought, and then I see pictures from over there, and I go, "Yeah, we're not in a real drought.
yeah.
We're dry." But
Well, that shows how the Devon can acclimate to different areas because they're eating leaves on trees and stuff, and the animals still look good.
absolutely, absolutely, and we talked about Gerald Fry. No, he went and got New Zealand genetics. I can remember recommending, "Why don't you go to Australia? They're in like the 10th year of drought. Any cow that's still walking around." I remember we went to Peter Knight's one time, 10 years of drought. He had like 60% conception rate on his cattle, which is a horrible number. But then you get there and you see these cattle out on a desert raising calves, and it was amazing that 60% of those animals got bred and thrived. And I said, man, if you want genetics that are going to survive anywhere, get them from the desert. Don't get them from New Zealand, the Garden of Eden. And I'm not down on New Zealand genetics. It's just um, taking an animal from a poorer environment to a better one is a whole lot better than taking one from a rich environment to a lesser one in terms of your success rate. Uh, what's interesting to me is you've got several bulls from me. You use some Rotakawa genetics. As you say, you've brought in other bulls since the Guardsman. But when I visited you, your cattle looked the same to me as they did 20 years ago. Even though you're using a lot of the same genetics I use, your cattle have maintained um, a Lenoir's Creek Devon look, just this wide-bodied, bigger cow than what I produce here, um, and they've just held their look. Do you attribute that to the environment they're in, or what you've selected bulls for um, that you put over your herd?
Probably the bulls and the cattle. because they were the first cattle that was brought here. So I think a lot of them, it's the genetics of the Devon breed that they brought down.
So you think that maternal line is, obviously using good bulls, but that maternal line and Bondsman used to talk about that the cow could reproduce herself, um, really regardless of what bull you put over, but to make genetic improvement, you needed the exceptional bulls. But what are you selecting for specifically when you're out bull shopping?
I just we don't want a real tall bull. We try to keep it short and stocky.
Thick in the rump and the neck.
Big scrotum. The 2 little tits or 3 little tits up under them, and they track themselves good. That's one of the good things.
Well, you're really in rocky, mountainous region there. I mean, how Mount Mitchell down there is 6,000 feet. You're in the highest mountains in eastern U.S. I know Mount Mitchell's 6,000 something feet. What's your elevation there?
We're about 35.
And from your lower pastures where your house is up to the mountain, what's the elevation change? I know I'm firing a bunch of questions at you, but what I'm getting at is you live on the side of a mountain, and cattle have to have good feet. You were talking about cattle that track, but they got to have good feet and good straight backs and good hips and stifle joints. I mean, your cattle have seemed to last a long, long time. Do you put extra emphasis on feet when you're selecting, or do you do things to manage that? How do you keep cattle from having foot problems, or is it just a breed?
It's just a breed. I've never had no trouble with feet here.
You don't trim any feet,
No, never have.
and you don't have a lot of people have these salad bar mineral things with 15 ingredients, or they're bringing in custom mineral blends. Or when I was down there, you were just using mineral blocks and your cattle were doing fine. Is that still what you're using?
That's all they get is trace mineral salt block.
Well, in the wintertime, they get a protein tub. The big black
200
tubs.
tubs.
I got you.
They don't get many of those though. Unless it's real bad cold, I'll buy more. But when they get up around $100 a tub, it's with what cattle I've got. Sometimes they can eat one of them in a day's time.
Right.
So I just kind of maybe monthly by monthly get one and throw out.
Do you think the cattle, because again, some people are buying custom organic loose mineral blends and spending, a lot more money on mineral. Do you think you have higher mineral content in your soil and grasses, or do you think you've selected over the years and the cattle have been there for almost 200 years now that they've just adapted to your environment and their mineral needs are taken care of?
They're probably adapted, I would say, because that's all they've ever got. Besides the mineral tubs, and they survive. And I don't think they really need any of all that extra minerals and stuff. This is what I've done for years, and I would say that a lot of people out there, anybody that buys something from me, I always tell them that all I use is a trace mineral block.
And also the more you're putting into the animal, the less you're really getting back. If they don't need it, don't put it out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you've been at it a lot longer than most, but I think the takeaway for me is, you prop the cattle up and then you got to keep propping them. But if you make them work on what's out there, they're going to cull themselves based on who can make it and who can't make it. We're stockpiled grass right now, and we certainly have a few calves out there that aren't growing like others that need some sort of an extra feed. Well, we're not going to do that. We're going to just cull those animals out and send their mamas right behind them. But we love on this show, right? Working with nature instead of against it. And cattle survived how many hundreds of years without any kind of mineral blocks or bags of mineral or anything. Um, and I'm not saying you shouldn't feed mineral, and neither are you guys. I think what your farm is, what your environment is, plays a role in it. How you're feeding your cattle plays a role in it. Where you live, all this plays a role in it. Well,
I got a
let's
question.
go ahead, Steve.
So in that, I mean, since you guys have been at it so long, you've obviously been managing your herd. What are your culling criterias now? Like, what do you look for when you're culling animals, or can you talk about that?
Mainly when they quit producing enough milk. I've kept them up to 22 years of age and still producing calves. But as soon as the calves don't grow much, then it's time to move them on. And I keep about at least 4 heifers, 5 heifers a year to replace. But I haven't really sold no cows in years, so the herd just kept getting bigger and bigger. But we have thinned out some of our old cows. We still got some around 19-year-old, and they're still producing good calves and got good milk.
But also at a younger age, when I can look at them, and if they don't look like the rest of my herd, or you got to give them a little while to grow. But if they don't, we want our herd to stay uniform. We want them to look about the same. And if one grows and gets a year or two old, and we say, no, I don't like, you can look at them and say, I don't like her. So that's how we cull our animals. They need to look like the rest of the herd.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I tell people that all the time. I say, well, how do you learn how a cow walks and what's a correct? Well, go watch 100 of them walk. If there's one of them that's different from the rest, that's the one with a problem. Now, what is that problem? That's a deeper thing to get into. But do they move like the other ones? Are they phenotypically built like the other ones? Are they growing reasonable compared to the other ones? What about open cattle? Do you cull open cattle? Do they get a second chance? What's your thoughts on that?
They would get a second change.
But a lot of it depends on the age too.
Yeah.
How old is that cow now? And should we go ahead and move her out or beef her or what? But if it's a young cow, yeah, they get a second chance.
We don't,
Go ahead.
through the years, we really haven't had hardly any, I think, that's stayed open. Do you remember any? They might have been one or two.
The only time we've had open cows is when the bull has quit working, you say, and we find out we've got a half a herd missing, a half a crop of missing. So yeah, that's about the only time we've ever had open cattle.
Yeah, I bought one bull and found out he only bred half of them, and I had to get another bull. But that's the reason I got spring calves and fall calves. We did have them all coming in the spring until I got that bull, and he come out of Mississippi. He was a real gentle bull. You could walk up and give him a shot or whatever in the pasture, and he would just stand there. You could rub all over him. And
What was his name? Do you remember?
George, I think, was his name.
From what farm? Was that Mississippi?
Yeah, they were up in their age.
Alabama.
Well, Alabama. She had a bunch of Texas Longhorn cattle there, and she run a herd of Devon.
Hmm.
We went and looked at him, and he was just out in their yard a picking. So we done some swapping on some heifers, and he brought him up here and took the heifers back. So then when I turned him out, that was the problem. I think they knew that he was going sterile, but that's kind of how I got spring calves and fall calves. And
That'll
that
do.
worked out good because they give us money coming in the fall and spring. Calves to sell 2 times a year.
If you had to just do one, what would it be? Spring calving or fall calving?
Probably spring calving.
They grow better.
They grow
I've
better.
seen that. And I try to talk, yeah, we'd mess up a little bit, but I wished we could get them all coming in the spring myself. They've got fresh grass and they just really take off quicker.
You got to sell the fall calvers.
Yeah.
Every 5 years, Martha calls me, tells me how they got to downsize, and then she calls me back and says Charlie won't sell any of the cows.
Well, we did this time.
You finally got him to sell some?
Yeah.
Well, when his right hand man got down, he decided it's time to do something different.
But they all went out to breeders. They were all breeders. They still could probably get 2 or 3 more calves out of them. But they went to the breeders and they were satisfied with them. They liked them.
You told me on the phone the other day you've got everything for 3 years sold to
I do.
a
Yes.
man in Tennessee.
Yeah.
That's nice. It lets you focus on work instead of marketing when you got a 3-year plan.
Yeah. And my steers too. These fellers, it's wants all my steers. So it's good down here selling the animals.
That's great. That's great. Well, you have certainly been dealt uh, a hard blow with Hurricane Helene. Um, I'm glad to see that you have a good outlet for cattle. I'm glad that your cattle were up on the mountain during the storm, but as we said, there was $78 billion in total damage, 60 billion in North Carolina, the deadliest storm in North Carolina history. I think 105 dead and 25 still missing. Um, I've seen pictures from you the last 25 years of washed out fields and flooding. I know you've had to redo the pond next to your house a couple times. You've had all kinds of storms way beyond what we've had. And it seems like every time you clean it up, you get slammed again. Talk about just again, you live on the side of the mountain, so when it rains hard, everything comes down through your pasture, through your house, right next to your house. Talk about the storms over the years, and then how Helene compares in terms of storm damage and how it impacted you guys as farmers.
This one was the worst storm that we have seen. It normally is across the road. I call it the sawmill side. It got hit hard, brought a bunch of trash in. There's probably 4 foot of sand all over the pasture over there that's going to have to be scraped and loaded up. This is the first time that it come across the road down Lenoir Creek. It washed out roads. It washed out everything around my barn that I had for my bull pasture.
Land too.
Land, a bunch of trees had fell down and it cut a new path right down through my bull pasture. All the way up the creek, they're just trees and rocks. It's fell in the creek and it just piled up with rocks. Up on the mountain, usually I turn the cattle up there in the spring, and I have fed up there because it's a good place to feed, not muddying up my pastures. But it took down a bunch of my fence. There's probably 2,000 or 3,000 trees that just blowed over up on the mountain. So I've got to get back up there when I can and put fence back up so I can turn them up on the mountain. they could live up there all summer if the fence is up good. Used to, I didn't have to worry about cattle going up on the mountain plumb in to the government, but they never did go anywhere. Now there's so many logging roads back up in there, and they sold the farm above me, or the land above me, which is 350 acres before he gets to the government line. But there's a lot of damage on this side of the creek that's never been hit on this side. It has got big and heavy and washed out our covers down here at the road, but this time it done a lot of damage.
You told me the other day you had knee-deep grass across the street, but you couldn't put the cows down there because FEMA had blocked everything off until they were done with cleanup. So you even have some good pasture that you can't use
Yeah.
because the government's keeping you off your own land.
Yeah. And then there's no fence. They're actually over there now. The government cleaning up some around the river. Where they should have done it is in plans 3 years ago when Fred came through. They were coming in and cutting trees out of the river, and anything that's 45 degrees and touching the water, that's all they could get at that time. There were 3 phases of it: clean the trees touching the water, then they'd come back and clean it up within 100 foot from the river on both sides. And that's what they're doing right now. But there's still a lot of debris and sand and everything still in the pasture. I didn't want to put up another fence over there until they got through. Because I'd have to cut my fence and then trying to pull out all that trash and trees. So I've not had anything over there in 3 years. And grass is about knee high right now, which I could have them over there. Not have to do much feeding.
How long do you reckon till everything's cleaned up?
Probably a year.
The look on your faces answers that question.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff over there. Once they've been over there now probably close to a month. There's just that much debris and stuff over there along the river. By the time I get in there, when they get through, I have to clean up, the rest of it. So it'll probably be close to 3 or 4 months on that side. Depends on the track hoes and bulldozers and things that I have to pay somebody to come down and do it. And then we'll start on this side up Lenoir's Creek.
And it got my pond again.
Yeah.
You got it back?
No, it's caved in. The back side of it like it was 3 years ago.
Well, job security for you, Charlie.
Yeah.
And for those that don't live in the mountains, when that water gets high and the white waters are rolling, it's just big roars. I'm just explaining that because, where it's flat land, it just rises. But in the mountains, it's pretty scary sounds.
You can hear the big rocks rumbling and tumbling against each other. And then when it went down, the water was just as clear as you could see yourself through it. And all the rocks was real white. It's like they run through a wash machine and cleaned every rock. And they're still like that. I mean, they're just white rocks.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And there's boulders in the pastures where they're not supposed to be. I mean, they've jumped the banks. The water was so high, and laying in the pasture.
I'm talking big rocks.
And you guys got to pay to get rocks removed. You go somewhere across country and people are paying thousands of dollars for boulders to decorate the yard and their business with. It's insane. It's crazy. Well, I remember calling on the phone to get a hold of you guys after the storm that took several days. Charlie had to drive somewhere in town where he could get a cell signal because he couldn't get one anywhere else. Martha was with a church group. I think you were living at the church, and Charlie was helping clean up other people's stuff, not even working on his own stuff. And I just shook my head, the devastation that they experienced, and they're helping others and reaching out to the Lord and not complaining about what hand they were dealt. Just Charlie just said with his smooth southern drawl, well, we'll clean it up, we get back to farming. And I twisted their arm. We did a GoFundMe page. We're going to put a link to that on the Spotify account. It's going to take years to clean this up. We had neighbors that sent hay down. I know the Mowry family farms was sending hay down to North Carolina, and had a lot of members that reached out to help Charlie and Martha. Had a lot of people from overseas that reached out and asked about you guys. And, we've got the wildfires in LA now and people kind of move on, but the devastation in North Carolina, $60 billion doesn't get cleaned up in a day. So our hearts go out to you guys. You've had health problems, you've had Mother Nature problems, but your resilience is inspiring.
Well, and similar to the cattle you raise, right?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of this.
They're well adapted. You're well adapted to flooding and
Hey, when Charlie tore the boards off that bullpen and that bull walked out as gentle as can be with a smile on his face, I mean, that's how you guys handled this. That's
Well, and you have to rely on God too. And the thing about this flood, we saw the water nearly in the yard. And our houses are safe, our family's safe. So yeah, a lot of people weren't as lucky as we were.
Yeah. That attitude is what's carried you guys through and gives me chills hearing you say it.
And it's why we wanted to do this podcast with you guys.
Absolutely.
And while we're on here, I am going to put it in something, but I would like to thank the people that has donated money to us. It will be used to help replace fences, and it's greatly appreciated.
Well, it went to a great cause and great people, and you donate to a lot of charities and don't know where all that money ends up, but this is going to help real farmers and really good people. So that link stays open. In fact, somebody made another donation just the other week, and I guess those will come in batches. So hopefully we can get some more. The GoFundMe video we did showed a lot of the pictures of the devastation that Charlie and Martha shared. If you go on their website, there's nothing about the storm, but you can see the before pictures. And really, really something.
One thing about the other thing that I want to point out is that, I mean, people are donating to you guys for many reasons, but your story is a legacy story for North American Devon breeders. And thankful for your work and proud to stand beside you and to look in on what's going on, and heartbroken about the devastation there, but also you guys represent a lot of what we all want to be. And that's really, I'm thankful for that. I think we all are.
Thank you.
Amen. Well, let's talk about legacy. That's one of the questions we try to ask everybody when you're gone from this world and looking back down. What do you hope that other Devon breeders and other people in your agricultural community will say about Charlie and Martha and their farm and their cattle and how they did things?
I say good things.
I hope they say, well, we have people that sometimes just pull in up to the house and say, especially if the cattle are in the hay fields, we don't do a third cutting in the hay fields around here. We just stockpile it. And they'll pull in and say, you have the most beautiful cattle.
What kind are they?
Hmm. And I think that's my legacy, that especially the local people know that we took care of our animals, and we try to take care of the land. That's what I hope.
Well, you can check that box. You've done that and more, and raised two kids and beautiful grandchildren, and uh, you continue to move forward through everything. Um, what on that same note, you've been doing this longer than anybody. When somebody's brand new and they come to you and they say, "I just inherited 50 acres and I grew up on a farm, but I've been doing something else and I want to get started." What's the advice that you have for those people, how to get started?
They try to figure out how many cattle or heifers they can put on that pasture. And I try to tell them not to get overstocked, the first go around. See how their pasture does, and then they can keep adding to them, and sort of after they see how the first batch does. I just sold a bull yesterday to a feller over in Bristol, Tennessee, and that's the first time I had met him. I think I had 4 up there that he could look at, but he had a hard time deciding. But he ended up buying one of them, and they're new breeders. The feller down in Tennessee, well, down in Chattanooga, that's wants my heifers for the next 3 years. He was new at it. I think I sold him 12 heifers last year, and he got his start. So now he loves them so much. He called me yesterday and talked to me, and said it's hard for him to leave the farm now because they move him every day behind a fence, electric wire, and he's just amazed on how the Devon can do down there in Chattanooga. I think he has joined the association. He's going to try to come by, I think, next week. He travels a lot with his job, but he's got a daughter at home, and she looks after the cattle when he's gone. But he's real tickled on the Devon cattle and how they perform down there.
Another thing we tell them, we don't push them into buying ours. We advise them to go look at other Devon if that's what they want. We don't say, no, you need to take these. We say, look around. Our preference might be different than what you would want. But yeah, we don't push them into it.
Good advice. Good advice. Um, I have some fond memories of annual meetings and events that we uh, went to together. Um, some stories that we can't tell, Charlie.
Yeah.
We have to keep private, um, but we had some really good times, and it's hard for me to say what the best times were. But do you have any memories that just pop into your head of Devon events, Devon gatherings that were extra special to you, or periods of time in the Devon community?
One of the good times when I was selling them over $20,000 a piece.
Those are the best times. That was a good time.
But
And then getting grand champions. We've got trophies of a bull and a cow too, like behind Jeremy.
Grand champion and female champion, and a lot of blue ribbons, a lot of trophies. So it's been a good. You could hear some people say when we would pull in with cattle, there comes the Tranthams. They just got used to us, and I didn't take nothing that I wouldn't sell to somebody, so I always took something good that I thought was good, and it worked out. And we were tickled when, we won a big trophy, a big bull or a big cow, and trophies. I don't know what the grand youngins or the son and daughter's going to do with them when we pass on, but hopefully they'll keep them and show them something happens here on the farm. We don't know what's going to happen when Mary or Joe passes away. He's got 2 kids. She's never been married, and we're afraid that something happens to Mary, they'll put up their side or farm up for sale. They say they won't, but you know how it is. They have no interest in the farm. We've been here so long, and his daughter has never been here. The boy's been here maybe 15 times in 36 years or so. But life goes on. She was wanting my son to take over the farm if something happened to me. And that's one of her things. She loved the Devon more than her brother did. And she's hoping James, my son, will continue doing it as long as she can keep her side of the property. We don't know what she's put in her will. She's asked several times if we could manage on her half of the farm. So hopefully she put it in a will that if he does sell his side, that we can still continue growing Devon cattle.
Laurel gets to leave that part out.
Well, I remember two not so great times, but stories that were a testament to you guys. One was I was driving to Washington, Pennsylvania for the show. About 50 miles south of Washington, Pennsylvania, tractor trailer in front of me threw a deer carcass, put bones and antlers through my radiator and 3 of my tires. And you guys came down, put my cattle on your trailer, hauled them up to the showground so I could focus on the truck and trailer. And the second one was we were here in Culpeper running an event and working other people's cattle that hadn't been tagged or tattooed properly. And the head gate popped up and busted Charlie in the mouth, knocked out I don't know how many of your teeth. Had to go to the emergency room and back the next day with a smile on, showing cattle, and just you guys are unfazed by things that come to you. And I know it's your faith, and but those stories tell just what kind of people you guys are. I've seen Martha bawl in her eyes out when they sell a heifer. Guess you don't want to see it go. And you guys are all heart, and I love you both. Good friends. And as Steve said, just you're a legacy to the Devon breed. One of the great things about this breed is not just the cattle and the pedigree, right? It's the pedigree of the people behind it and the stories. And we got the George Washingtons and the Henry Fords and the King Charles and all this, but I'll take Charles Trantham over King Charles any day. So you're my King Charles there, Charlie. So
Okay, thank you.
love you guys. Steve, I'm going to give them a chance to fire a question at us, but anything else for them before I do that?
I do. I mean, I'm thrilled by a longevity of stewardship of the same animals, and so my question is, you guys have decisions that happen. One decision that you're like, that was the decision that really made a huge difference. Or, man, I wish I could go back and redo that one. That one was a decision I shouldn't have done.
What comes to my mind is our bull, Lakota's Guardsman F-142. I'll always say that bull helped us get on the map. He just threw great calves, and I'll tell you, I had a lump in my throat the day he had to go down the road. He was so gentle. On our website, there's a picture of my 2 nieces way back when they were pretty young. He was laying out in the pasture and they went and sat down on him. He was that gentle. I mean, and there's pictures of our grandkids with other bulls that, I sent you a couple, one of the same girl I mean, we kept our granddaughters till they started preschool, and Ellie, our youngest one, was sitting there holding up some hay to one of the cows, and people would see that picture. Oh, you're going to get them killed. And I'd say, well, do you think I would set her on the ground if I thought that cow was going to run over or knock her down? And then the picture of Ellie, our youngest, with the stethoscope, because it was career day, going to be career day at school, and she wants to be a vet. And that newborn calf, we took her up there with a stethoscope and a lab coat, and she's sitting there like she's listening to the heart or something, and that cow just looking at her. You know, yeah, there might be a cow or two that no, we're not, because we know how they protect their calf. But these animals are so gentle that no, we're not afraid to let well, it'd be great grands now, babies around the cattle. But our granddaughters are soon to be 15, one's 14, and one will be 10. And they help us work the cattle. The middle granddaughter, Bailey, I think is going to be our real cow hand, because she really gets in there. It don't phase her. She helps us work them. And I'm also training her for registration work and transfer work, because I'm the only one that knows how to do that on this farm. And who knows down the road what might happen. So I'm putting a lot on a 14-year-old, but she's doing good.
Well, if she needs help too, we have other people that would love to come alongside of you guys and with the new DNA stuff, help you sort that all out. But I'll say about the 142 bull, there's I've only been in Devon cattle since 2009, so 15 years. And along the way, I would go to the shows, and I would see an animal that I was like, man, that one is amazing. What's in its pedigree? 142, and there's two other bulls, which I'll just leave off for now. But 142 was one of those three that I would see in the pedigrees, and it was consistent so much that I was like, I need to figure out how to get my hands on some of this. So thank you for being a good steward of that one. How about
I still have a few straws of semen.
Well, maybe they're sold right now.
Are you selling semen, Charlie?
Not really.
No. Well, that's good. I asked because you'll get a bunch of emails looking for semen if you say yes, you're selling semen. So,
well, actually, we're thinking about using some on our cows. He was just a good bull.
you're not getting 25,000 a heifer anymore?
No,
I bet if you made a
That
check,
was a
you would have hauled 10 animals up to that sale instead of 3.
yeah, that was a good day that day. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that was a good day. We had a lot of enthusiasm in the Devon breed at that time, and then we kind of had a dip down, and I think now we have that enthusiasm back. We've got a lot of young breeders in the breed now, guys like Steve, and you guys are a rarity. You know, Martha said it earlier, we make a living off Devon cattle. Most people have to have another job in town. You know, their cow herd, especially a cow herd of 80 head, is not enough to provide, but you guys have made it work. And our board of directors and our membership now is made up of people that have to have productive cattle. They have to have a positive income stream or they can't do it. And I think it's a great thing for the leadership of the organization to be farmers. I remember Charlie, you and me joking one time about, we ought to make doctors and bankers and lawyers. You got to work on the farm if you're going to be on the board. You can't be a wealthy person that invested otherwise. And I say that jokingly. Obviously, all types of people can be members, but I think it's great to be driven by actual farmers. You guys have a ton of experience. Martha, you were secretary for 7 years. You did it right after I did it. And Charlie, you were president two times.
Yeah.
Um, what advice do you have for this young leadership that's up and coming? The AJ O'Neills and David Fells and Steve Montgomery, these guys coming up that are the next generation of leadership as us old timers start to play out.
Well, I'll say this: we're not rich people, but we pay the bills. We got a roof over our head. We do have, some money in the bank. You got to spend wisely, and don't spend out stuff on cattle that you really don't need to, because in the end, that takes part of your profit. You just have to learn to budget and
watch the cattle, see how they're producing and how they're growing, and try to get the cattle the same look if they can. If they have to change bulls every now and then to get what they want a Devon to look like in their mind. My mind may be different than Jeremy's. Some people like longer legged cattle. There's a lot that like the shorter Devon cattle. So they just have to try them and pay attention to the cattle and react, watching them and how they produce and grow.
And if you want to have a living of doing Devon, you can't make pets out of them, because you do have to cull animals. If you have a cow that keeps having poor looking calves, well, she's not doing you any good. So yeah, you have to cull her if you did have her for 5 or 6 years. But if she's not doing what she needs to do, she needs to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, do you guys have a question for us or something you'd like to get into with Devon Cattle or the organization?
No, but do you know where the meeting's going to be this year?
We do. We do. AJ O'Neill is working with, Steve might have to help me. I think it's called Southwest Project Grass in Pennsylvania. I don't have the town in front of me, but we will put a link at the end of the podcast
Well,
as to where it is. But and I don't have the date. I apologize. I should have
that's
it.
okay. I just want to know the state.
I
South.
think we're shooting for the first weekend in October, last I heard, and it's at the Fayette County Fairgrounds near Uniontown, Pennsylvania, which is just southeast of Pittsburgh
Okay.
on
Yeah.
on 119. So it'll be easy access for most people from most directions.
Well, I hope health wise we can make it. I miss going to the meetings, and mainly to talk to breeders and just meet new faces that I see their names on stuff and on a breeders list. I'd like to be able to just visit with them and talk to them some.
Well, I'm probably halfway there for you guys. So you got a place to unload cattle for the night and recharge your battery. It would be fantastic to have you guys back in the show ring. You mentioned your trophies and my trophies. Do you like Steve's trophies?
I knew
Yeah,
that.
they look pretty nice hanging there on the wall.
Yeah.
I gotta give him a little bit. That's a long running joke.
All I say to Jeremy is, I'm associated with 6 Lombardi trophies because of the year.
It's a loose association, but we'll leave it at that. Well, thank you guys so much for agreeing to do this. As Steve said, you guys are a legacy, and I'm glad we were able to capture this. We did a lot of stuff with my dad last year that with his Alzheimer's, I don't think he could pull it back up again. And as you know, there's been a lot of great people in this that have come and gone. And now with this technology, we have the ability to have these conversations that maybe boring as heck to some, but anybody that's a Devon historian, even 50 years from now, is going to look back and see that Alona Bull and the Guardsman Bull and Lenoir Creek Devons in their pedigrees. And um, regardless of what else happens, your legacy will live forever uh, in the Devon breed. So, tip of my hat to you. Um, and thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. Keep
This
that
was-
head warm.
We'll try. We'll
I
try.
seen why you had your hat on.
What's that?
Seen why you had your hat on.
Yeah, well, when we said that prayer at the beginning, I give them a good look at the
Yeah.
shot up on top. Um, but that's all right. We'll keep it warm. Um, Steve, anything before we go?
Thank you, guys. This was a great conversation. Look forward to seeing you in October up in Pennsylvania. That would be
I
great.
hope we can make it.
And the World Congress is in Australia in 2028, so that's the next one. And a lot of people say they're going. So stay tuned for more information on that, everybody. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks very much. It was a great visit here on the Devon Corner, and we'll talk to everybody next time. God bless.
You too.